So this is something that is not surprising, but hilarious to see said out loud. As we know, Shuei Yoshida has left PlayStation and he's been on a tour doing interviews and everything. And he's been just spilling the beans for PlayStation, spilling a lot of things and exposing them in different ways. Not all negative, but just exposing some of the secrets behind closed door that you may have not known, particularly what went on with like games as a service and how he became the head of indies, how it wasn't his choice. He was kind of forced there, or he was going to have to leave the company. And the one thing we always talk about when it comes to PlayStation is where they are going to be releasing their games going forward. They already have a huge presence on PC. That's going to continue to grow. The other thing that I think eventually will happen, even if people today say it isn't going to happen, is that day and date is coming to PC. I mean, it will, and it's already happened for some games and a certain styles of games, multiplayer ones in particular. I mean, look at Helldivers 2. But I think overall, they'll eventually get to a place where it's pretty much every single game launching day and date on PC. And the reason for that is because PC is a growing market, and it is a market that makes a significant more amount of money than will be able to be made on the console over the coming years, with the console being stagnant in its growth and basically selling to the same people, as the numbers don't really expand past what they are every single generation. And Shuei Yoshida just spills the beans. He says this. He says that PC is like printing money, and this is why it is so important going forward. We have this article here from PC Gamer, and it says, former Sony executive finally says the quiet part out loud, putting PlayStation games on PC is almost like printing money. This was again from Sacred Symbols, Colin Moriarty's podcast, and he was talking about his time as the head of PlayStation Studios and explained that he wanted to bring Sony games to PC far earlier than when it eventually happened, but it just wasn't the way Sony thought back then. And I think if Shuhei would have had his way, and they would have started bringing games earlier than they have, they would be even further ahead now with their business. And I think they would be in a better spot right now with their business. Yes, their consoles are selling significantly well. 75 million already sold or sold through, whatever it means. They're counting your 75 million PS5s have been put out and sold. And they're going to probably be around the exact same as the PS4. So it will be two strong, successful generations for their console sales. But we do know that just pushing consoles now is not enough for these companies. They need to make more money by putting their games in other places to support the just ballooning development costs of these games. And you could bring in a whole different other discussion when it comes to this stuff. And this can be with AI coming in. There's a whole discussion now going on in gaming, and people are pushing against it very hard. And you have other people like me who are skeptical in certain ways that AI is going to affect the industry, bad ways in terms of there will be some job loss, but I think there's going to be a lot positive things that AI could do for video games going forward. But we'll have to wait and see. This is all just at this point speculation and guessing. So there's a lot of changes here that are going to be implemented to try to reduce the ballooning cost of development. And again, putting games onto PC is one of those things. Now, specifically, Yoshida says releasing on PC does many things. It reaches a new audience who do not own consoles, especially in regions where consoles are not as popular. And I think that is a huge thing, is targeting those regions where people just don't buy consoles. And says the idea is that those people may become fans of a particular franchise, and when a new game in that series comes out, they may be convinced to purchase a PlayStation. Says it goes on here to say it worked out well for us, but I question whether this argument holds water. PC gamers can be incredibly patient when it comes to playing games on their preferred platform, and since Sony has demonstrated its willingness to put nearly all of its major exclusives on Steam, PC gamers' response would simply be to continue waiting. And then again, maybe Sony has access to data that suggests otherwise. And in many cases, Yoshida also noted that it's an easy way for the publisher to generate extra revenue, stating porting to PC is way cheaper than creating an original title. So it's almost like printing money, and that helps us to invest in new titles now that the cost of games has increased. And that is saying the quiet part out loud, something that I've talked about on this channel countless times. When people are wondering why is PlayStation remastering so many games, and that's like been some of their biggest releases this generation. Why are they putting them on PC and in the remastered versions? Because the development cost to remaster this stuff is significantly lower than making a new game, and the margins are way higher by opening those games up to a brand new audience that may have never played them before. Now, would putting them on PC push people to the consoles for the next title that does come out? I don't know. I don't even know if we have data to support that. That's just something that the executives, I think, say in a way to not totally piss off the brand and the fanboys and everything, the people that will get worried that the console will eventually go away. I do think at some point consoles will become more and more obsolete, or at least the current way that we have consoles. There may be more just PC boxes that you connect to your TV, and they're just branded more as a PC box. However, putting it on PC just makes so much sense because of those margins and because of how much money you can make off of each more people buying the game itself. And on top of that, selling consoles is with the amount of cost to sell games, unless you're Nintendo, who we know has significantly less development costs for their first party games, isn't going to be the thing that makes them the money, makes the stockholders and shareholders and all those people that they have to make happy. They just won't when they're going to their financial reports. And if they were to just keep everything closed off and they're showing small growth compared to massive growth by putting games on PC, that's the point of doing all this. They need to show those numbers for the financials. That's just the reality of it. It's not about the gamers at the end of the day. The realistic thing here, it's about how are they going to be making their financial reports better, and how are they going to make the investors happy, and how are they always going to show growth. And the way to do that is by putting games onto PC and then putting remasters in places everywhere, because as Shuei says, it's much cheaper to develop that, and then you're printing money every time you're selling a copy of that, which you don't get by selling a new console or pushing the next generation of consoles. You're not printing money every time you do sell a singular console. So that, to me, he says the quiet part out loud there. A thing that people still debate to this day as to whether it's a good strategy or not, or whether it's going to help them in the future. The reality is it's absolutely going to help them in the future, and it's something that they have to do. They're not going to turn away from putting games onto PC, and I think they will go even harder on it into the future. The other interesting thing here when it does come to PC is the other markets out there. I mean, what has happened this generation is we have seen China play a major role and their market expand and become a far bigger player that Sony and Microsoft have to pay attention to. Because if they don't, you see something like Black Myth Wukong happen. You see a company like Tencent, if they really wanted to, they could just make games and they could sell them to China and then still sell their games all the way across the world and make millions off of everybody in different parts of the world. So they have to pay attention to China because they have a big advantage there. And I think Black Myth Wukong really proved that, with Tencent having a huge advantage by funding that game, and then it being a game that was highly propped up in China with the marketing and everything. So that alone is a market that PC plays a major role into, and they're going to have to be able to cater to that market via the PC as well. And that's another reason. And that's the thing where I think with Xbox, when they put their games on PlayStation, it's not just about trying to sell more copies to just in general. It's about reaching regions where they have just no chance at all. Japan specifically, like the Xbox console has no chance in Japan, no matter how much we want to try to convince ourselves that they could eventually. They have no chance there. And the way that they get their games sold in those regions is putting them where the players are. So interesting stuff here. I love how he's just basically saying everything. He's been very open and transparent because he's not tied to them anymore. I'm sure there are some things he can't say, at least yet, but the interviews between Shuei Yoshida and the people who have interviewed him have been interesting in terms of giving us more information on the gaming industry. But I will end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.